All right, guys, good morning. I haven't done a Sunday show in quite a while, and that was a regular thing on here. And it was amazing how it was always a rainy Sunday. As always, I should just name this Sunday mornings the Rainy Sunday Show, but today it's not raining. It's been raining all week. It rained all weekend. Internet was going in and out Friday night and Saturday, but we got out a little bit yesterday due to that. That was a good excuse. And I actually ended up taking a 3 hour nap yesterday, which was amazing. I didn't know I could still do that. But due to doing the Cavern of Chaos live show and showing off my new books there on Friday nights with the crew, and make sure you're subscribed to Jared Osborne and Paolo Costa's channel because we're probably going to be doing the shows more along there, when we don't do them here. But anyway, I ended up having quite a few books to show off, so I figured I should do a live show. Everybody is wiped out in the house. Everybody, I didn't fall asleep till 3:30. And then I was up and about bouncing around. I guess it has something to do with that nap. And so I got to play around and see some hot books on Instagram and stuff. If you don't have me on Instagram, just look up Howler Mouse on Instagram because I do show some of the new books I get. And I also take pictures of how much I paid for them. Okay, usually like at Ollie's price tag on the stuff I'm going to show. They actually show the original price and then their price, so you can check it out there. And it's just I'm finding Instagram to be my social media of choice. The less I'm on social media, it seems like the more I get pumped about this hobby again. I don't know what that connection is. I could go into that, but that'd be a whole other video and stuff, right? So everybody that has popped up here on a Sunday morning or about to pop up or watching us on Rewind, I appreciate you. Like, if you're not doing that, what do they say? Smash it. Smash that thumbs up. Smash that like. Also, make sure you're subscribed. I've had an increase of subscribers, which is great, but it's for my older stuff that I think that people are picking up on. I've been doing this quite a while, and there's quite a few videos. And share the video if you feel like it. Let people know out there that there's probably like 2% spec on this channel. and I've really been getting pumped up to actually talk about comics. I made a video a couple weeks ago showing a Swamp Thing book by Alan Moore and a Watchmen #4, where Dr. Manhattan is on the Mars. But around the same time, there was a comic that Alan Moore wrote where Swamp Thing was exiled into space unintentionally. They thought they killed him, and he ended up being alone on a blue planet. And I was really kind of proud of that. I could have had a little bit more, I don't know, a little more personality in those videos, but I think it had a good reaction for the people who have watched it. So anyway, make sure I get the comments up. And I'm going to kind of show you. Now, this is a combination of buying some books off a friend. Work has me traveling again across Virginia, so I get to hit a few Ollies and Books a Million between here and 5 hours away, depending on when I get to hit my lunch and things like that. There's still work to do, so it's not like I'm hitting these towns and going looking for books. It's if it's convenient. And I ended up getting quite a nice haul over the last month or so. Some of this stuff I got last month, of course. But a lot of things, I'm looking at the stack here, and I'm just sort of like, how long is this show going to go? We'll just need to get to it finally. All right. So before I get to the books, I might show this a little bit later if more people pop in, who knows. But apparently Loki, the Disney Plus show, I have seen people split down the middle with that first episode. I haven't watched it. I'm not going to watch it. I actually watched somebody do a review where they they had the show on pause. They would skip through it, stop, and talk about what was going on. So I'm sort of up to date on it. But it's the books that people were trying to get. It's that reactionary thing again where people watch the shows and either they are enjoying the show or they're just watching the show so they can get through their comics. I'm part of a Facebook group where I've seen somebody I think his shop's in Ohio or something. I don't know. I didn't even know he was a comic book shop owner. But he flat out said that as far as he's concerned, watching Marvel shows is part of his job because he watches the show and then he gets into his shop before he opens and he'll pull the key books that he sees in there. And Thor 243, the first appearance of the Time Twisters, apparently seems to be one of those books that everybody's going to be running for. I've actually seen this thing for up to $70 on eBay if you go by eBay prices. Now, a lot of people that watch my show, you're seasoned collectors. I'm well aware you know what you're doing. But for the people who are checking out, playing around, and they're into the speculation part of it, a lot of them are rookies. They are rookies. You can tell by how they talk. You can tell how excited they get by common books and how much they're willing to pay. You can just tell, you know what I mean? But the Thor 243 is one. But the trick with this is that if you're going to start getting keys that are from the Bronze Age, especially, man, you really need to check them out. It's dangerous to get them on eBay if you're not asking questions. It's dangerous to get them online, period. Why is that? Well, I saw a lot of people getting their Incredible Hulk 181 and they weren't asking the right question. In the 70s, these books had Marvel value stamps, and you could actually get a booklet where you would cut out the stamp and paste it into a booklet. So that causes a lot of books from the Bronze Age. Now, my beat up copy here, if I bought this, I got it as a filler issue, but I inherited quite a Thor collection, if you will, from the stepdad. So this was already in my collection. I really don't know if I bought it or not, right? So let's take a look and see if it has the Marvel value stamp that I'm talking about. Because this is the only way you can be sure is if you get your hands on the book and if you want it that bad, and it is in here. Your Marvel value stamp. Those will be cut out of your Bronze Age books, guys. So be careful what you buy online. Ask the questions. That is fantastic. I'll make sure there's anything else in here I can bring up. I always wanted this toy line because that is a Jack Kirby drawn advertisement for Big Jim's pack. You know. Yeah, as a kid, I was sort of like, how come I don't see these in stores? And is this a comic? Because even though I may not have known who that Jack Kirby cat was, I knew his style at the time where I was so little. And Jack Kirby scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So there you go. There's your comic tip of the weekend. If you are going to be reactionary and you have fun with it, make sure that if you're getting Bronze Age keys from the 70s, that's the Bronze Age, guys, just to leaks into the 80s there. Just make sure that you're asking questions. Does it have that Marvel stamp? I have been disappointed before, but I saw so many people thinking they were getting a great deal on like Incredible Hulk 181, the first appearance of Wolverine, and they're like, oh, the stamp's cut out. So, we'll have to put that back. Okay, so where to start? Okay, before I get to the comics, I found a few cool things. Found these at an antique shop. There's some comics here that are from antique shops here, but we'll get these out of the way. But I went ahead and bought these because I got such a great deal on them. There's no records in these, but I didn't know they had made these. But simply because I was probably 11 years old when I went and watched Dune at the theater. I'm a fan of Dune. I totally own that the movie has its faults. It's not perfect, but I had no idea of the merchandising they did. But this is a mint condition storybook that would have came with a record of the telling of Dune, which is fantastic. Also, it was years later that I found out that they had made action figures of Dune because I never saw them at the store. It was all G.I. Joe, He-Man, and when Dune came out, they still had Black Star figures out at the store I had. This was like 1984-ish, which I remember well. If you knew Black Star, that was a Filmation cartoon like from 81. So who knows? But one of the few things about this is that no kid read their name. I was one of the kids. Kids actually had little portable record players, and they actually would get their records out, go through the books, draw in them, and the records wouldn't be in great shape. So I ended up getting two of them. Battle of the Known Universe, Part 1. And Part 2. I had no idea how many parts there were, but I had to grab those. Maybe I'm running across the record, but that was okay because I found this from 1974. I was still a baby when this came out, but I've got quite a few of these Planet of the Apes and stuff, but this one is in excellent condition. Not so much the book. The book is complete. It's clean. It's not drawn in. It looks like a cross between Mike Plug art and not. I don't know what the deal is. It's not consistent through there, but it looks like somebody was trying to be Mike Plug and a little bit trying to be Neil Adams a little bit in here. I'll have to do a little research, but it came with the record, which is in mint condition, which you just did not see because as kids, you throw your records around. So this was fantastic to find. And after I do this show today, I went to Walmart yesterday and I bought a 4-cube organizer, which is going to be wide enough on top to put my record player, CD player, cassette player, vintage on top of, and it has shelves big enough to get my records out of these milk crates and put them in the shelf. So I'll be playing that later when I get everything set up. We're going to go with Books of Magic right now, all right? We're finally going to get to it. I'm going to be all over the place. This is the first trade that I went ahead and I just paid the $20 for when I bought some other stuff that was on discount. Now, Books of Magic came out in 1990 as a 4-issue miniseries set, and it had John Bolton doing the first issue, Scott Hampton doing a second issue, Charles Vess doing the third issue, Paul Johnson doing the fourth issue. The art in each book is fantastic. And this was Neil Gaiman, had been on Sandman for 2 years, and he was becoming a rising star because Death had made that book pop, the character of Death, okay? And it came out in a 4-issue prestige miniseries, right? And I'm at the point where some of the stuff I bought is just so I don't have to dig through the boxes to read. I'm really getting into slowly rereading the stuff. Oh, nice. I'll go through the comments in a minute, guys. So what happened was over the years, I've run across different printings of the Book of Magic, but, you know, I would pull out my 31-year-old now. Blows my mind that a lot of stuff that is still great to read, you know, is really starting to, the time that it came out is mind blowing in my mind. 31 years old, you know, you can go through high school twice, you know, but anyway, I went ahead and got a trade of it. It was the only one, it was there. And now I can go through and read this. What was great is for several years, I couldn't find issue 3 that was drawn by Charles Vess. Charles Vess Charles Vess is within driving distance. He lives less than an hour in the town. The town that he lives in is less than an hour from me. But anyway, I was in Johnson City, Tennessee, and I was going through some back issues at Atomic Comics, and I found issue 3 finally. And when I opened it up, I had to keep a poker face because it was signed by Neil Gaiman and Charles Vess. I already had several things signed by Charles Vess. It was his signature, and I can see how Neil Gaiman could have popped in there. It's been verified since then. So anyway, I have this for a reader's copy. This is probably why I never hopped on the Harry Potter train, because there's so much resemblance between Harry Potter and Timothy Hunter. And I've run across people who just shut down when you start talking about it, or they get angry, you know. So I don't really delve into it. But Neil Gaiman, somewhere along the line, was finally asked how he felt about Harry Potter. He just said that J.K. Rowling and him had the same influences. A couple years later, around 2013, 14, somewhere around there, thanks to YouTube, a YouTuber who's no longer around pointed out that there was a BBC comic, or a British comic book character or something, where he predates Timothy Hunter. And they actually novelized some of the stories. So that apparently may have been a hit. It had John Constantine, the Trenchcoat Brigade, Mr. E, made him a character, Phantom Stranger. They were all showing the complete history. Neil Gaiman organized sort of a history of magic in the DC universe, all the way to the end of the universe where Death pops up. But anyway, it ended up becoming its own series at Vertigo a couple years later. And I think there's, you know, they're attainable. There's less than 100 issues, counting the annuals. But a guy named Peter Gross, I think that's who was doing it. Let me look here. Anyway, I ended up getting a bunch of these. And what's funny about these books, Peter Hogan, Peter Gross. A guy named Peter Gross ended up doing an ongoing series with great Charles Vist covers and stuff of the books of magic. And it's all about Timothy Hunter becoming, he has the potential to be the greatest magic user ever. But could he be evil or not? Is he going to be evil or is he going to be a good guy? But anyway, I always try to complete this series. I've had like the first 40 issues and I was sporadic after that. Probably around 2015, I sold a bunch of these books to a buddy of mine. And he's now, a couple years later, we were talking in Messenger, and he said that he's doing a sale. He's selling them on Facebook, then out to her. And I said, I want the books of magic. So I've ended up buying for $8 all of these back from him. I'm positive several were mine that he bought off me to begin with. So yeah, I'm getting closer to finishing up the books of magic run. That's where we're at nowadays with comics, is finishing up these runs I've been dabbling in for years, or things I was buying off the rack back in the day and sort of drifted off from. But the books of magic, what's great about Peter Gross writing this is that he lives less than 2.5 hours away. And I remember seeing an interview after the book was, it was selling well, in the 90s there. But he said he had to sort of be talked into it because he was worried about following up on Neil Gaiman, North Carolina boy, I guess, which is cool. So for some reason, I thought that was cool that there's people working on comics that aren't in New York, in your mind back in the day. Okay. Go through the comments. We just took a chunk out. Brian Francis, they sell record players at Walmart. I have seen some Walmarts with record players. Record players have been on the comeback for a while. I got rid of a bunch of my records and stuff probably in the late 80s, early 90s. Basically, whatever I was playing records on just broke down, and I never really tried to replace it because I was starting to get CDs and I was still doing cassettes and stuff, right? But yeah, I've probably in the last, 15 years, I've accumulated about 3 milk crates worth of records, but I'm real picky on what I get. I don't need to have just an abundance of records to say I have records. You guys hearing me okay? The Dune movie is a guilty pleasure, great soundtrack. Absolutely. Was it Toto and Tangerine Dream that did the soundtrack? I'm not sure. I used to know these things. Brian Francis, good morning. Victor Thomas is here. Good morning. Okay. All right, let me get a little organized here. So now we're at Ollie's, and this is what I'm talking about. Go ahead and get me on Instagram. For you guys that are popping in, I'm really pushing being on my Instagram. Just type in Howler Mouse on Instagram. Like the video, share it if you want. Make sure you're subscribed. That people know that there's places where you can still talk about comics. But anyway, when Grant Morrison took over Batman back in the 2000s, he mentioned bringing in a character that he was excited about into the modern day Batman. We had a little bit of a talk on Jared Osborne's channel Friday night about Grant Morrison and Batman before my internet went out. Make sure you're subscribed to Jared Osborne for our comic book talk show, Cavern of Chaos. But anyway, Grant Morrison did this whole thing where he just took everything from Batman from the 50s on, and he wanted to take everything that was considered silly and make it canon and put it into Batman. That's where you got Batmite, the League of Batman, Batman Inc., and all this stuff, right? But he was even influenced with, apparently in the late 60s when the Batman TV show was going on, Jiro Kuwate did a Bat manga over in Japan. And I was really surprised to find that Ollie's had volume 2 of this. I would love to get both of them. So this little piece of history, see if that's going to show up. So Ollie's, as you can see, regular price $12.99. I got it for $3. This is the kind of thing that I'll put on Instagram, just to kind of show what I got within a day of buying it. So manga is really becoming big in this house between my wife and what I already had and what I'm starting to find. I I've always totally got why manga really grabs people. The stories can be sophisticated yet told simply. They have a beginning, middle, and an end most of the time. I can go on and on about that. Maybe that'll be another video. Another thing I got at Ollie's while I was doing my travels. This was $29.99 regular and $5.99 is Fables. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, I was on Fables from the beginning. I knew who Bill Willingham was, thanks to his TSR work back in the day, not his elementals and comic book work. So, and he had dabbled around with Steve Englehart on Green Lantern back in the day in the late 80s, a few issues here and there. So I knew who he was. And I was really excited about the premise of Fables, the idea of all the stories, the fairy tales living in the real world. And so I was there. I kind of regret selling issue 1, but I got angry. I got angry probably around the 40s, where they it revealed who the adversary was, who was taking over all the fabled storybook lands and running all these characters, and they're hiding out in the real world. And they're also hiding from us, trying to look normal. There's a whole secret world of storybook characters living here. So I ended up selling it when I sort of got angry, because it turns out Peter Pan was supposed to be the bad guy. Bill Willingham had been dropping little hints and clues slowly over 3 years that I was following the book. And Geppetto was running around with the fairies in the real world, with the storybook. You know, he was part of the community there, all right? He'd been popping up and everything. And what happened was Bill Willingham found out that Peter Pan was not in public domain. And he had to change who the adversary was, and it was Geppetto. And I still think that's the stupidest thing. I just think it's stupid. I really do. I just do. So I got angry, and I'm like, screw this. I invested 3 years in this book, and I sold them. So now I'm a little bit more forgiving. I get to pick and choose a few things. I have some random issues of Fables that I pick up every now and then. But this is the deluxe edition of the first 12 issues. And I honestly think this is one of the series that you would do well to go ahead and get in hardback collected editions. It's a fantastic series. So many characters and so many ways to go with the book. It's well crafted. And of course, you always have like the regulars who carry the story in the cast to grow with them. Big B Wolf, Snow White, Jack, of all the fairy tales and stuff. So for that price, I couldn't pass it up. Now, something I'm probably going to end up selling after I read it is the 3 volumes of Swamp Thing that Grant Morrison started out co-writing with Mark Millar in the 90s. But there's 3 trades of this to do the complete Mark Millar Swamp Thing. Grant Morrison there was a thing going on when Mark Millar started out. They always had Grant Morrison attached with them, and then, you know, either Mark would leave or Grant would leave, and one would take over the book. But I finally got the 2nd volume. I've always found this thing like beat up, tore up, and everything. And I love my Swamp Thing. I do. I have a lot of the single issues of this run, but this run ended up ending the series. I don't know if it ran its course or if sales went down. But now that I've sat down and I'm reading the entire collected edition, trying to read it straight through, I'm not impressed with it. Now I'm going to finish reading it, but you know, this may be an eBay sale, all 3 of them. But like I said, I ended up getting every volume of the Swamp Thing, all 3 of the Miller runs for, you know, $2-3. This one was $4. So it's not like I'm out a lot of money, and they are in great condition. Plus, that's a cool cover. I mean, you should see this. This looks more like a photograph than a painting, you know, so I'm sure it's probably computer enhanced or something. But basically, they play around with what Alan Moore did, giving it a twist when they start out. It turns out that it was all a dream, and Alec Collins still alive, and the elemental stuff and everything that happened with Nancy A. Collins, Rick Vetch, Alan Moore was a dream, and then they go from there. But Mark Millar took it way too far, because Swamp Thing ends up, they got derivative. You had Parliament of Trees, which was new. You know what I mean? It was the elemental. Swamp Thing was a legacy character, and the elemental was a protector of the earth. And then they go to the Amazon with other Parliament of Trees, and they just plant themselves, and they retire and make decisions. Well, he ended up having Parliament of Rock and Parliament of Waves and Parliament of Air and Clouds. And I was really done with the series when Swamp Thing was becoming the ultimate elemental, being the champion for everybody, and he put himself inside a cloud because it has moisture. Yes, Swamp Thing became a cloud. Wonder Woman 1984 had Wonder Woman lassoing a cloud and swinging. Swamp Thing turned Swamp Thing into a cloud for a panel or 2. I was like, done. I'm done. Comic Crack says the cover artist did sculptures for his work. That is fantastic. I'm now going to be looking up who this is. Thank you, Comic Crack. I actually thought it was like some kind of claymation, a clay model when I first saw it. But the way they have colored this on this trade, it really does take away from the realism. I'm hoping that shows up. But the coloring and stuff actually kind of makes some of it look like it's digital. Maybe that's the printing. So thank you, Comic Crack. I appreciate that. Guys, that's the one thing about YouTube. I don't think I have ever really gotten defensive on someone correcting me. That's what we're all here for. You know what I mean? We're all here to get the accurate information out, talk comics. I think it's all about manners. Now I got all these for $1 a piece. Like I said, I was working 5 hours away, checking out a client. I was at a school for kids with special needs, and I beat a client that was also taking the 5 hour drive, and I ended up having an hour to kill. And I looked across the street from the school because they were having problems with traffic or something. And I looked over and I found an indoor flea market. There may be other books I got from there and just don't remember, but this was recently. But I ended up getting all these for $1 a piece. And they are so mint. I said on my Instagram that they make 1979 look like yesterday. I was 6 years old, so this is actually the Avengers that I started out on proper. My uncle and stepdad had a lot of Silver Age, Bronze Age books because they'd been collecting them and fought over whose was whose. But this was the modern stuff when I was 6, the new stuff, the sleek stuff. This is George Perez covers, John Byrne art, Ralph Macchio, Dave Michelny. I got something that right. Ralph Macchio, they were all like having a hand in all this stuff, right? So here's 183, and I'm going to get this bag and boarded. I actually went to the comic book shop last weekend to get some bags and boards and found out that there is a shortage. According to the comic book shop guy, Rob at Mountain Empire Comics in Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee. He lives on the state line, his store. It's on the Virginia side, but if you go down the block, you're in Tennessee. He said there's actually a bag and board. There's a comic book bag shortage that's supposed to be going on till the end of June because these things are made in China and something's going on. So anyway, I ended up getting these. Some of these are upgrades. This is probably my 3rd or 4th copy. The Yesterday Quest is I had the books that were my stepdad's that I've carried all these years. I've gotten a few upgrades, but the 3-part Yesterday Quest is my favorite Avengers story. Maybe it's when I read it. I don't know. I think it's fantastic. But it's got everything I love. High Evolutionary, a touch of Dr. Maru, gypsies, a mood setting, gypsy magic, things like that going on. It's very centric. 190, 191. Whoops. And I tell you what, with the way the comics were in the 70s, you got the gray gargoyle on the cover of this one. He would touch you and you would turn to stone. He was in Thor. He was in Avengers. I thought he was a player when I was 6 years old. I even had the Marvel Legends figure of him, one of the few I buy. So the gray gargoyle was actually one of my favorite villains. But like I said, it's probably the time. I went ahead and got the last issue of Suicide Squad, a series that... Now that I found the trades, I don't know if I showed those in a video, but I found five of the trades at Ollie's for something like $4 a piece. I was stuck around the Suicide Squad when it first came out in the 80s. I think the first 12 or 13. No, probably about the first 14 issues. And as you can see where there's no UPC code or anything like this, I'm pretty sure it was taken off the newsstand. But it had an artist on it named Luke McDonald that I feel like this book would have been bigger if they had a better artist on it. Because now that I'm sitting down and revisiting it years later, John Ostrander is a hell of a writer. He was laying down seeds that would carry all the way out to the end of this series. So there's a payoff. So I got the last issue of that. Still putting together, I won't talk about this very much, but one of the most underrated books, I think, that came out in 89 and 90. Then you understand this is also when John Byrne had gone back to Marvel. He was on Star Brand. He was on the West Coast Avengers. You saw some of his West Coast Avengers book pop thanks to WandaVision. He was doing Namor and She-Hulk, and the Quasar was coming out, and Todd McFarlane was doing Spider-Man. There's a lot going on. But out of DC, there's this little book that started out as Legion 89. And as the years went by, they changed the year number. I swear the first 30 issues of this book is fantastic. But don't go spend a lot of money. I'm talking about if you want to just read a solid comic that builds on itself and you got to have a little bit of knowledge there. This was a fantastic book. some parts of it has the feel of a James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy feel every now and then with some of the goofiness. Then they turn around and they get really brutal, you know. And then I just got these because they were there. I'm a Valiant Comics fan, but it's the Jim Shooter years, if you will. And some of these I'm picking up to sort of fill in, get a full run like Shadow Man. But I went ahead and picked up the Chaos Effect that was free, alpha, if you will, to start their next crossover after Unity without Jim Shooter there. And I'm telling you, man, they're kind of painful to read after Shooter left. Man, those were good years. Oh, yeah, and I got this for $1. This is a replacement. It was amazing. I bought one of these at a local antique shop, but the pages were yellow inside. This is an annual for Legion. It says 007, but it's an Elseworlds tale, and you have Lobo sort of being like a little bit of a Bond story, but they have other stories inside of, like, it's like what if tales. Now, this is what I'm saying about some underrated stuff here. Okay. They had a Legion of Gotham by Gaslight, where they sort of parody Mike Mignola's Gotham by Gaslight, which is fantastic. A little bit of sort of Savage Sword of Conan there, the Savage Sword of Legion. And I laugh at this now that they have these Savage Avengers or whatever that was. I was like, oh my goodness. But here's the one that cracks me up. Sandman 1994, Lobo as Morpheus, the Sandman, rejected, of course. So fun stuff. That's what I'm saying about fun stuff. I might actually put that picture on like it got bent up a little bit. Anyway, I want to put that picture on Instagram pretty soon. Not so much that I'm expecting people to be like, oh my God, that's so cool, but basically so I can just find the picture. It cracks me up. What we got here? Good to see Comic Crack here. The joys of a good flea market. Everybody check out Comic Crack's channel. He does great stuff, does some great shows. What we got here? You're right. There's a shortage. My store can't get stock into July and August. Oh my goodness. John Jones with the comic book. That should be a discussion all on its own. Is anybody else in their areas finding out that there's a comic bag shortage going on? I got told at the end of June. Sources for John Jones here is July and August. That's unreal. Blasting and Stashing Comics. Heard about the shortage of bags and boards from a couple shops here in Oregon too. Wow. Palo is here. Everybody make sure you subscribe to Palo, because there was a weekend where two of us could not do the Cavern of Chaos show, and Palo did a live show on his channel with Scott, and it was hilarious. I've listened to bits and pieces of it as I've done stuff around the house. Palo, I did not, my internet was going out Friday night and all through Saturday, and it seems to be running. We've had a lot of storms here, so Elseworlds and a parody. That's fantastic. It's a fun book. It's one of those books I don't want to overhype and act like it's something special, but I'm really impressed with some of the stuff they did in it. It's a very satisfying read for me. They really, every now and then they'll do some crank up the sci-fi stuff, and they'll have something brutal happen. You know, it's fun stuff. A lot of it comes off as vague and aloof in certain places, but it pays off in the end. Okay, let me keep in order here. Let me see what I've done. There's a book I specific. Okay, let's do these two real quick. All right. So what we have here is a hardback, and Marvel several years ago made a deal with Neil Gaiman or someone. I used to know this stuff off the top of my head, but my first Miracle Man story by Alan Moore had to be the late 80s, 88, 89 is when I got my hands on it. All right. And there's a whole story about Miracle Man going on, but it was highly influential, and it broke a lot of barriers and took storytelling in a lot of places in comics, right? Very adult stuff, right? With Miracle Man. Then there's all sorts of things with the Eclipse, Todd McFarlane, Neil Gaiman, all the rights. Alan Moore really had this book going. Started out in Warrior Magazine, I think, in England. Eclipse brought it over here, and then Alan Moore started doing some new stuff in it, right? Continuing the story. Great stuff, all right? but then it went sort of into obscurity, and it was more infamous for Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane going to court over stuff that Neil Gaiman did for his McFarlane Spawn book, and this got brought up. McFarlane said he owned the rights. Long story short, Marvel finally got a hold of it, which was ironic because the character was originally called Marvel Man, going back to the 50s and all that stuff, right? Marvel didn't like that, so it got changed to Miracle Man, which I think is a happy accident. It's an improvement. So when Marvel really started hyping up that they were going to be bringing out the series month by month, new covers, new coloring, hardbacks and trades and everything, and we were finally going to get that final issue that I am one of the people that's probably waited at the time over 20 years for that final issue by Neil Gaiman. They messed it up. It hasn't come out. I haven't heard any real news. But one of my concerns was that Marvel was really hyping this up and they couldn't use Alan Moore's name. As great as this story is, the problem is that it was groundbreaking and fantastic when it came out. Due to other stories getting the same tone and going places and being influenced by this and going places they normally wouldn't do, I was like, they really don't need to hype it up. It's not going to blow people away like it did when it first came out. You know what I mean? It's not a book. It's a book I still recommend for you to read, but don't let it get hyped up. So I think that's why we didn't have Miracle Man Mania. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, I now have all 3 volumes in the hardback. And when I had my first hands on that hardback at Ollie's, I mean, these trades sell for $30 and $50 that I've seen, except for people who don't know about Ollie's and stuff, right? I got this for $6.99. It's originally $35. I thought I was going to have to buy the second one. For over 2 years, I have not found the second one, and it really does bother me when I look at my shelf and I see that gap in the hardbacks. I have several of the original runs from Eclipse. I have a Warrior magazine. I have a lot of the Marvel stuff I found in dollar boxes where they reprinted them. But to find this, I still haven't taken it out of the shrink wrap, obviously. I really was starting to stress over getting this for a good price. You know what I mean? I almost gave up $25 to get it on eBay. Then the shipping probably would have jumped it up to 40 with the way people are now. In my experience. So yeah, Miracle Man, worth reading, but it really got overhyped. A lot of people will find this underwhelming just because of what's been done as part of this book influencing comics back in the 80s. All right. Love it still. Okay, Stormwatch. Now I'm missing one issue of Stormwatch. I think it's like Stormwatch number 48. But anyway, the original Stormwatch around issue, oh my God, what was it? 36, 37, 38. Warren Ellis came on Stormwatch at Image. Okay. There's a lot of cool things that was going on at Image in the 90s, despite the 90s having the reputation it does of a lot of junk coming out, which it did, but you had Alan Moore and Warren Ellis, doing books at Image, which was, I think, was really fantastic. But anyway, Warren Ellis came on, revamped the whole team, actually killed off. They had a licensing project where there was a Wildcats aliens, and I mean alien, the xenomorphs, H.R. Geiger's aliens designs, the aliens and stuff. They had a one shot, and they ended up killing half of the Stormwatch team. You know what I mean? Which helps lead into the Authority anyway. But anyway, he came on to Stormwatch. This is a hardback, beat up version, $5 that I got. You can see it's all beat up. I got this for $5, so I would stop pulling out the books, reading the Warren Ellis stuff. I'm really getting to the point where I am getting trades just so I can read them if they're cheap, so I don't have to pull out the boxes here. You know what I mean? And mess with the original issues. But anyway, this was a great run. And this ends the volume 1 of Stormwatch. Warren Ellis did something like, 38 to issue 50. Then we'll stick to series. Then there was a volume 2 that was 11 issues, and that led into the Authority. The Authority blew up huge. Okay. All right. This is what I'm talking about. Things like Miracle Man, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Frank Miller's Dark Knight, and Daredevil Run, things like that, pushing books. Kingdom Come, Squadron Supreme in the 80s by Mark Grunwald. All kinds of things were leading up to the Authority. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, this is just a reader's copy for to go through. And now that I'm older and the way that politics in the U.S. had been over the last 5 years and stuff, I'm picking up on a lot of, and somebody got mad at me or had a comment. I don't know if they were mad, had a comment about this comment I'm making. I'm talking about the work. Let's make that clear. This comment I'm going to say is about the work. But I felt like there was a lot of negative things said about America through the characters, and that there's a lot of extreme left stuff going on in this also. I've just started rereading it again, and somebody got really upset with me for saying that. And I'm like, I'm talking about the work. This is a critique of the work. I'll probably have something more to say as I work my way through it again, rereading it through different eyes now and stuff, right? But this is something that started in the 90s, and I read it sporadically since then. Probably just over the last 5 or 6 years did I get full runs. Other YouTubers like Charleston66 and Karmic Quarter 410 sending me trades to get the complete story because it's so good and I love it. So that's what I mean. It's time to sit down and do a proper read through from beginning to middle, you know. But real good stuff. $5. And it's starting to pile up here again. Easy. Okay, guys, when you're stacking up your comics and you're doing a video, second comic tip of the day, make sure you don't have a huge paperback novel of wasteland, of post-apocalyptic stories that you're stacking them up on. They eventually tip over. Like, that's what just happened here. Oh, my God, how funny. What we got here? Okay, what we got here? We have Paulo Costa. Hey, where's the show tonight? Talking to Comic Crack. My channel is for this. Comic Crack will have a show tonight. I'm probably with this. I'm assuming Comic Crack, it's with the same band of usual suspects. Sleepy Reader, La Raza, and you guys, oh my gosh. Not Gore Vidal. Oh man, put his name in there. I watch him. He does this panology stuff. They have another guy there. All right. The Gaiman issue Eclipse run are so expensive around here. Yeah, they got real pricey there for a while. I've looked at finding them at flea markets, surprisingly in good shape. I was glad to find the 4 Mr. Miracle Man hardbacks at Ollie's cheap. No way I'm paying retail for them. Exactly. No need to. Wish we had an Ollie's up here. It has its moments. It really does. Hi, my name is XJ9, but I like to be called Jenny. I really like to be cute and sexy, and I love Moon Knight and Sentry. All right. Cool. We have a complete Alan Moore Miracle Man hardcover and a complete Neil Gaiman Miracle Man hardcover in Portugal. They're not equivalent to any U.S. edition. Still cool, man. Yeah. Good tip on not stacking your books on a skinny little fat novel. Absolutely. Yeah. A bunch of short stories. I'm glad that helped. It brought a post-apocalypse. It bought. Hold on. We're getting dry. It brought a post-apocalypse to your comic stack. Yes, it did. Earl Grey. And my apologies to Earl Grey for going blank on his name. No excuse. No excuse. All right. Found this for $3. At the moment that I was in that comic book shop and I had showed up, I ended up getting 2 short boxes because it's time. And that's when I asked for the comic book bags, found out about the shortage, but he said he had just bought a collection and he said it was a bunch of Superman stuff. So I went back there and looked through there and I found this little gem here, The Incredible Hulk versus Superman. Roger Stern, Steve Rude, Al Milgrom. Now I got it completely for the Steve Rude, okay, art in this. This is from 1998-ish. And I remember missing out on it, which is not a big deal. But the reason I missed out on it is that I had a baby. Okay. This is, like I said, this is the late 90s. I wasn't aware of anybody that you could actually get a, order online to get your comics monthly and stuff. And I really could give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I had a son. So I was like, yeah, whatever, but I was still getting comics, don't get me wrong and stuff. But yeah, I didn't really track this down at the time. Then years later, I was like, I really need to get that. And it just never really popped up. So I paid $3 on this. I didn't even try to haggle or hustle with it. I was just so glad to get it. I think $3, considering it was $6 in 1998-ish, 99-ish when it came out, $3, that's still good. Yes, people, in my opinion, $5.99 was an expensive book back in the late 90s. All right. Something that was really cool is that the wife actually is the one that has the discount card for Books A Million, right? So when I saw this, I actually it was one of those few moments where I was so shocked. I'm pretty sure I I said something out loud that drew attention to me when I saw the stack of books. There's like 4 or 5 of these, and I went through and I found the most mint one. But this is Marvelosity, huge hardback book. I'm not going to take it apart. The cover, the dust cover, actually unfolds 4 or 5 times to give us some more Alex Ross art. But I have the mythology book from DC, and I really feel like Marvel was really trying to blow that out of the water, collecting. This is actually a really good companion piece. There's things in here that they show Alex Ross's art from when he was a kid that matches up with mythology. He used to take cardboard, I guess they were like toilet paper rolls and stuff, and he would give them arms and legs and make comic book characters out of them. In mythology, DC showed his Justice League, and this one it shows his Marvel characters and his crayon works of Marvel characters and stuff. So it's a good companion with the Alex Ross mythology DC book. And now that I'm thinking about it, I have a video up. It was one of the few times I used a high def camera at the time, where I'll walk you through the book of Alex Ross's mythology. I completely forgot about that. Anyway, yes, it's a plug, but it wasn't an intentional plug. I went down memory lane. But anyway, this is fantastic. Now, it was retail. I think it was like $50 when it came out. They got it covered up here somewhere. But I'm pretty comfortable saying this is probably, $50 and $66 Canadian, since we have Comic Crack in here. So anyway, ended up saw the price for, get over there, $12.97. Well, I had my wife's phone number, which every husband should, their own wife, not mine. And I was able to go ahead and get another discount on this. And I think this thing came to $11. That may not be right, but I put the, again, on my Instagram, I took a picture of the receipt to show how much it was. For some reason, I'm going $11. That doesn't sound right, but I'm not out to steer you wrong on, hey man, I got a deal. But anyway, $50 book, brand new, mint condition, 11 to 12 bucks. Fantastic. And I really enjoyed it. I sat in my hotel room and spent about 40. I flew through this in about 45 minutes. And I may have actually read the entire thing along with the pictures and stuff. A lot of the stuff I already recognized and knew. But this has, Marvel's in it and everything. So maybe I'll do another one of those videos to go with that mythology series. Okay. So, like I said, I'm getting things that are readers' copies. I've already taken, this was a Books A Million. I want to say this was maybe like $6 or $7, maybe. But I bought the hardcover when it came out of the Black Dossier. Don't make fun of a man who can't say a word because he learned it by reading. But anyway, you don't see a lot of dossiers floating around in the Appalachian Mountains, guys, especially or in trailer parks and stuff, right? But anyway, this was fantastic. This came out around 2007-ish, and this was technically a 3rd volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. This may be the last thing that Alan Moore had done for DC. He, of course, didn't want anything to do with DC since the late 80s. He started working at Wildstorm, doing Wildcats and all sorts of things for Jim Lee and his Wildstorm characters and stuff, playing around a little bit, dabbled in Todd McFarlane's world there a few times. And then all of a sudden, Wildstorm was bought up by DC, and he had America's Best Comics, his ABC of Comics line going on, and he didn't abandon it. He had too many people working for him, working on his books, to just run away from DC and say, screw it. He wanted to keep people getting paid. So he finished out. And this may be the last thing. But the Black Dossier is fantastic because the plot involves 2 members. I don't want to get deep into this, man. I'm going to try to just give it a quick rundown. But in the 50s, okay, the government, they're just coming out of a big brother like government and stuff in the 50s and stuff in England and stuff. But anyway, Mina and Alan Quartermain end up stealing the Black Dossier that has the secret history of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and a little bit of the English government in it, right? And what is so cool is that what you hold in your hand is also what they're reading. There's postcards in this and excerpts and novellas and everything in this, along with a plot with the characters and stuff. I loved when that wasn't the first time Alan Moore had played around with characters reading the comic or the book that you're holding in your hand. So that's what makes it cool. There's a little controversy in this, right? Because there was supposed to have been a record where Alan Moore and his band or companions or something did 2 songs to go with it. It wasn't released in America. I remember buying this, going through, finding the 3D glasses, being all excited. And I'm like, where's the fucking record? The record wasn't there. It was probably around 2012-ish when before Watchmen was going on, where people were really talking about how Alan Moore wasn't behind this. They talked about the meetings of DC trying to get him back, even offered him supposedly the Watchmen rights back to do if he would do sequels or prequels or whatever. And they mentioned how like the record was released in the United Kingdom. And apparently DC claimed it was because of worried about international copyrights. So somewhere out there, there is a 2-sided record, 2 songs that was supposed to have gone with this of Alan Moore singing songs that appear in the story or have something to do with the story. One of the things that bothers me, you know what I mean? Because I have everything Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen, except that record. I didn't mean to digress so much. But if you're a James Bond fan or not a James Bond fan, some real interesting stuff. Was it this one? I think it's either this one or Tempest. And we're going to go on. Digressing there. So the whole thing is I actually bought one, a soft cover because it was on sale. And it comes with the 3D glasses that I want to probably rip out of this. So I can just sit down, pull this off the shelf and read the story. What was interesting it's not this book. Anyway, so yeah, I got this. I'm going to clean it up a little bit. So I got a soft cover so I could read because it was on sale. Don't have to mess with that. Now, 2 books that I got from, we're flying through here. We're going to be done in a little bit here. Let me see what we got here. Palo. Watchmen and Doctor Who aren't owned by the same media company. Okay. I must have misspoke while I was sitting here talking. Interesting. Okay. For $12, I'd buy that. I wouldn't pay full price for that book. Okay. Yeah. I mean, everything. Yeah. That's probably talking about the Alex Ross book I got there. Blasting and stashing comics. I picked up Marvelosity at Barnes & Noble on the discount shelf. I think I paid $16. It's a must for anyone that is a Ross fan. It's fantastic. That and the DC mythology books are fantastic. Comic collectors out there. What's up, brother? And Victor Thomas, everyone have a good day. Hey, catch us on the flip side. So sometimes I'll pick up, sometimes I can read a book and unexpectedly it stays fresh in my mind. I have a knack for remembering this stuff anyway, as long as it's from 2015 back, I think. I don't know. But I have a knack for kind of remembering some of these things. So sometimes when I realize when a book came out, I'll get floored. I will get floored because it's still fresh in my mind with those stories like I read it yesterday. And I'm not exaggerating or being dramatic. And that's what happened with this book I'm about to show you. Now, by no means is it a book that's going to blow you away, and no means is this one of those books that's influenced hundreds of people, but I just loved it. I thought it was solid and it was interesting. There was different takes. It had so many creative people doing the book. And they were standalone. It was uncomplicated, but it's the volume 1 trade of Batman Black and White. Of course, yes, that's a Jim Lee cover. Now, the Jim Lee cover is a bit more of a bigger deal than what we would say now, because this was 1996 that the first Batman 4-issue miniseries came out of Batman Black and White. And the Batman Black and White is one of those books that I would recommend anybody who likes Batman to get. You have all these, they bring in tons of people who get to do these out of canon takes on Batman. They get to explore a little bit, and they're short stories. And of course, they're all black and white. There's been 4 or 5 volumes, but when I saw this was 1996, when I still have the original 4 issues that I bought off the racks, I still pull them out sort of regularly, it feels like, but probably like 5 times since 1996. Yeah, I had a moment. I had a moment of, yeah, I'm getting old, so I had to deal with that. But yeah, it still blows me away that this was 1996 that this first Batman Black and White miniseries came out. I'm just going to end up being a broke record because I can't explain the feelings that come with that. But they hold up. They stand up. They're still great. That's the great thing about Batman. This is Walt Simonson, Richard Corbin, Jim Lee, Howard Chaykin, Mike Allred, Alex Ross, Mark Silvestre, just all kinds of great people. And a lot of those people are still around, and they were around before. That's what makes it so great. So I ended up getting the second volume. I had decided to just get one volume of this months ago at the Books A Million. The nearest Books A Million is about a hour and 15 minutes away for a good one, but we have a tiny one at the mall that everybody calls, cost $1 million, because where they have so much rent to pay in that mall, you don't really get good deals there. They actually take their discount books. They have 2 little shelves of Marvel trades they've been trying to get rid of since they opened, but they'll take the good stuff and ship them to other places to put on their discount racks. It blows my mind. And they'll have some stuff there, but they really keep the junk. But anyway, I got volume 2, and I need to do a little bit more reading into this because I don't know if this is volume 2 of another of the miniseries that followed the first Black and White, or if this was stuff that was in the back of other books. And I think that's what it was. But this stuff's fantastic. Alex Ross, Steve Rude, Jose Garcia Lopez, Harlan Ellison, Warren Ellis. Just great stuff, and it's all black and white. So that's just fantastic stuff. Okay. Oh, Eric Breen is here. We lose Victor Thomas, but we get Eric Breen. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Everybody should know Breen. Oh yeah. Well, you get a timeout. We're here to talk about comics, not you. That's the first one I've announced. I put people in timeout before. Okay. And that may not even be a real person. Who knows? Okay, get back on track. Good morning. The first Batman Black and White volume is so great. Architectural foam panels and columns. Nice to see you. The third volume just finished releasing. Oh, awesome, man. I'm so glad people are familiar with the Batman Black and White stuff. That is, I think it's fantastic. Everybody's saying hello this morning. Okay. Now, before we finish it out, I want to kind of flip around here, right? Now, like I said, I've been YouTube for 10 years this year, and I try not to be a broken record, but there's some new people. But started reading comics when I was 4, 1977, because they were in the house, thanks to a stepdad and an uncle who were very young. If you watch that show, that 70s show, just put in a 4-year-old little blonde-haired kid with a Dutch boy haircut, tough skin jeans, wildcat tennis shoes, and didn't have front 4 teeth, looked like a little blonde-haired vampire running around. And I was reading these comics and reading their stuff. But at the time that I was reading the Silver Age X-Men, my first X-Men book was X-Men #3, Jack Kirby Fantastic Four. Jack Kirby scared me. There were other books that I was reading besides this heavy stuff. I was reading heavy metal and monster magazines, Fangoria, everything that was around. I was reading Michael Moorcock Elric books, pretending I understood them completely by the time I was 7. Not that this is like anything fantastic in my mind. To me, it's comparable to, did you have a TV in your house growing up? That's what comics were in mine. But there was things that I liked, that I enjoyed. I liked the Beagle Boys when I'd get those little 3-packs of Disney comics. I had an old issue of Super Goof with him and his magic peanut getting his powers and stuff, right? And then there were like this book that came out sporadically that I pick up when I find them, Little Monsters. I'm a huge fan of those, I guess, pre-goth books and cartoon characters before the Cure was a thing, before, the Bajas was a thing, before Neil Gaiman based all his characters of Sandman on rock stars and stuff, right? But that was like, we're talking like the Weirdleys from the Flintstones. I wanted a cartoon of them, the little monsters of the little Frankenstein family, things like that. I thought those were cool. The Addams Family, the Munsters, all of that stuff. To me, it was a Halloween thing, not a sad goth thing, if you will. So yeah, I always get excited when I'm like, I found some more Little Monsters. These things were sporadically put out, I don't know, starting in 64 4 or something through the early 80s, maybe. I don't even know how many issues there were, but I've got at least 12 or 13 of them now. Plus, I have the original. And if I looked around here, I could probably pick it right up because I had it out the other night. But I have some of the original ones without the cover, that I read as a kid. I think I even have a Super Good comic. I don't have any of the Beagle Boys. I miss the Beagle Boys. I was a fan of the Beagle Boys. All right, I've already shown this. This was $1. This is the one I had to replace because the cover, amazingly, the outside is in better shape than the replacement, but the insides are yellowed through and through. I've bought off this guy before in his lot at the antique shop, so that surprised me. So speaking of Warren Ellis, I really have to wonder how well or not well this series of books by Warren Ellis sold. And I'm going to tell you why I'm suspicious. This was $1, and I picked this up because we had just mentioned it for half a second on the Cavern of Chaos show that we do. And it was A Mystery of Space by Warren Ellis. I remember he came out with a series of books of what would happen if England, Great Britain, were the ones that won the space race. You follow what I'm saying? Now, here's why I'm sitting here saying, if you look at this, it looks like a pretty good sized trade, a collected edition, if you will. But they refer to it as omnibus. This is not an omnibus. Oh, just get it. This is an omnibus. Okay. I have 3 or 4, maybe 5 omnibus. So maybe I'm just, maybe my bias about Warren Ellis, the person, versus Warren Ellis, the work, I can separate them. Obviously, I have a lot of his work, but I have to wonder, where are they coming off saying that that's an omnibus? I don't know. Maybe they're playing around with terms. So for bragging rights, if I wanted to humble brag, I could sit here and be like, I got an omnibus for $1. There it is. Okay. So this is Charles Weston, who I think is a fantastic artist. If I'm remembering right, Charles Weston did a 12-issue miniseries with J. Michael Straczynski where they got some really obscure characters from the 40s and did a series of books called The 12. I enjoyed it. It had tones of Watchmen, which you cannot escape from, I guess, when you're trying to do a mystery in comics now. But anyway, the artist, I think, is solid. It's my whole point. If I, whether I'm remembering the right book or not, I'm familiar with this guy's work. He's really underrated. But yeah, we're going to get off that. The omnibus thing, just like, it's when you're deep into the hobby and you might have been doing it for too long, is when you see things like that and you're like, huh. Another $1 book I got, and this is worth $1. Is the Rogues Gallery. And again, Comic Crack, that may be a sculpture by the same guy that sculpted that Swamp Thing trade that I just showed you, the second volume of Mark Millar stories. But anyway, Rogues Gallery, this is just a lot of fantastic pinups and art of the villains. This is probably from like 96. But what really blows my mind is how Vertigo they tried to make it look. I'm going to tell you, this looks very Vertigo-ish for when it came out, but it's got a lot of Sienkiewicz stuff in it and stuff, really good stuff. And then a lot of people were really, one of the best books that I used to pick up to push on people. And I still think you need to go back and get those, but I don't push it like I used to for several reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the work itself. But Eric Powell is somebody I met several times at Heroes Con. And there's that one time I think I had a chance to hang out. We were at the same hotel, and I might have had a chance if I was not so freaking tired and noticed. But he spotted me and Scott Connor coming back from Heroes Con. And I think we went out to eat. That's what happened. We'd gone out to eat, and we were coming back, and in the lobby, they had a little bar on the side. And we were at the same hotel that a lot of the people who were at Heroes Con was at. The guys who did the Hernandez brothers, they and their little crew, their wives and stuff, we were sort of beside of them. Eric Powell had a girlfriend with him, but as Scott and I were walking through, I just wanted to shower. You know what I mean? I'd already had something like a 13-hour day. And Eric Powell, I talked to Eric Powell so much at Heroes Con in his line when he had a line, had so much stuff sold, and talked a little bit about talked about how he met with John Carpenter when he was doing some Snake Plissken stuff, I think, or no, excuse me, the Big Trouble in Little Chinatown stuff. We had some good talks. That's my whole point, and this had gone on for years. But I noticed that when Scott and I walked on, Eric Powell was to the side with his girlfriend, and when he saw, he almost yelled at us and stuff. And I'm like, not now. And I just went on. I'm also the guy that hushed Garth Ennis, when we were talking, because he was about to ruin the story for me. I was afraid he was about to ruin the story for me. But anyway, but when the Goon came back through Albatross, I was pushing Goon, and I have several videos talking about Goon. Maybe some, I think 2 or 3 of the videos are Goon focused. They're just about the Goon. But he had a book called Hillbilly came out, and Hillbilly is where Eric Powell actually sort of lost me, because he had this momentum going with this great book called Hillbilly, which was, in my opinion, the greatest thing coming out for the year that it came out. But he started up Goon again, and several people who know me were flipping out that I did not pick up this new volume of Goon coming out through his Albatross books and stuff, right? Not a big deal. I haven't missed them, but I found these for less than $1. This is issue 2, I don't know, 3. They may not be in order. Great volumes, but I found them in a box where it was $1 box, but this person, his section of the antique store, he had a 20% sale going on or something like that. So yeah, I got these, and there was more there, but I just got the issues that Eric Powell himself worked on. So yeah, and if you find the it was lot number 44, if the seller number 44, if you can, for you people, there are people who just watch my channel locally, so they can find my honey pots. My own fault. I never thought that would be a thing. That's why I get a little vague on some of these places I go. And we're going to finish it out here, it looks like, coming there towards the end. I'd like to thank everybody who has popped in here, everybody who's stuck around. Okay. Palo. Well, theoretically, all issues of Ministry of Space are available in that collection. So I guess that makes it an omnibus. Yeah. Interesting. Unfamiliar with the 12. Ollie's actually has the 12 hardback edition of all 12 issues that came out, and it seems like they had some kind of special issue or something like that to kind of catch people up on who these characters were. I could be misremembering, but it took forever. The series went off the rails because the last issue or 2 was delayed for a long time. Totally, from what I heard, because of Straczynski. But when it came out, you read it as a collection. It's a fun read. Like I said, you can't get away from, when you do a mystery in comics, you kind of can't get away from Rorschach here. Retcon Doomsday Clock. Please do not ban me. I just want to save comics. Nice. Don't we all? Do I hate Doomsday Clock? We've actually talked several times on a show that we do on Friday night, and I'm sure I mentioned it over the years when it was going on. Doomsday, and I don't mind answering the question, but Doomsday Clock had people doing the best they could on that book, and I hate that they were wasting themselves on it. Gary Frank was knocking it out of the park with the art. Jeff Johns was back in his trying to write like Alan Moore mode. That seems like he had some good ideas they could have got fleshed out, and some good ideas that shouldn't have been wasted on a series like that. So I don't hate it, but I'm indifferent to it. You know what I mean? I see a lot of work that went into it, and I really hate to I just feel like Gary Frank really worked his ass off on that. Never read the Goon. What's the premise? Goon is take Little Rascals, take EC Comics horror, take 30s Mafia prohibition, and throw in some horror and some comedy in there, and you have the Goon in his own little world. The Goon actually took over this. The Goon poses as muscle for a mobster that he killed. So he's really running things. He's heartbroken. He has a a little sidekick with little orphan Annie eyes named Frankie, who will pull you out and give you the knife to the eye. And they have things like the Bob Dylanish Hobo King. You know, they have Rumpelstiltskin, even though you don't know that's his name. He's like the main antagonist with his top hat that has somebody's face skinned and put on there. He has buddies who are like giant monsters and they like a good beer. He uses brass knuckles and axes and everything to take out zombies. And then you have the Wicker. He had like a Wicker Man or something, and the lady who broke his heart in a one-shot series that actually changed the tone of the Goon. Goon is fun if you like EC comics, and it's good stuff. Good stuff. Eric Powell does some great stuff. Vinny Nosferatu. Do I want to the Doomsday Clock retcon? Nah, it shouldn't have happened to begin with. I go to the stream with Charles 66 the other night. Oh, I got on Eric Breen. He was with Charlton 66 the other night. Great guy. He showed me some incredible Charlton comics. Everybody go to Charlton 66 channel. Fantastic guy. Little Orphan Eyes sold me. The Dark Horse volume that started in the mid 2000s. I want to say it's issue number 3. On how the Goon and Frankie met when they were kids. That's the one I would start people out on. It's fantastic. Okay. So here we are, guys. Now, as you can see right here, this is the Sandman Overture promotional poster. I have several of the original miniseries that came out, but I think, 25th anniversary? We're getting towards the end of the stream. You guys know how I get after about an hour, but anyway, Sandman Overture sort of came out, and I think it's because it was around the 25th anniversary. If that doesn't sound right, but it probably 30th. Anyway, it came out because it was an anniversary of Neil Gaiman's Sandman, right? And it was Overture. Now, one of the things I like about this is that when you open up the trade, it gives you the definition of Overture. The music played before the real story happens. So this is a prequel to issue 1 of the Sandman that explains why he was so weak and easily captured by a nickel and dime store spell by a little, cult, in Great Britain trying to capture Death, but they got her brother Dream. J.H. Williams does some of his best artwork in here, but this book, I think it took 3 years to get something like 7 or 8 issues out or whatever it was. Yeah, this includes this little collection here, though. Collects like, 40 pages of variant covers, special behind the scenes, sketchbooks, and everything. But to sit down and read the entire story as one is fantastic, especially if you know Sandman. If you don't know Sandman, big deal. So it's got some great fun stuff in here. It's got everything in this, sci-fi and everything. But like I said, it was on sale. I got this for $4, and now I don't have to dig out my Sandman box and to read this in its entirety. And just because I have talked about Sandman over the years, is in the same breath that I've talked about James Robinson's Starman and Alan Moore's Watchmen and Jack Kirby's Commandy and all these things. No, I will not be watching the Netflix Sandman. I got rid of Netflix months and months ago and have not missed it. And I have reasons I'm not going to be watching the Sandman book. It will be asked of me, so I'll figure I'll just acknowledge it here. So, this is the last 2. They're not going to blow anybody away, but some of these are a little bit nostalgic. But Deluxe Comics was what I understand, and I could be wrong, but there's 5 issues of Wally Wood's Thunder Agents that came out right in the midst of things like Crisis on Infinite Earths going on. It had George Perez. This one has Jerry Ordway, and then also had Keith Giffen and a bunch of big names. And I had issue 1 and 2 that I had found in a box lot that had George Perez covers. But there were 5 issues of these, and I could never figure out who Deluxe Comics was. And I suspected it had something to do with DC because it had George Perez covers and art and stuff in it, right? So I sold them. I think I sold them a couple years ago, and now I know that there's only 5 issues. We're going to be on the hunt to get the rest of these. And then purely nostalgic, I picked up Vamps on the whim in 1994, and I was able to get all 6 issues of it. Elaine Lee and William Simpson's. And I'm gonna go ahead and tell you why I was getting it. It's because we were playing White Wolf. I was a huge D&D guy from the time I was 13 to about 18. And the people that I was playing with were and having campaigning with were much older than me, 17 to 33. And I was with those guys for years. And there's just a magic when you have a campaign in D&D with guys like that. So I started playing D&D after they were leaving for the military, moving away, they were just growing up. Life. And I kind of dropped out because I couldn't find that magic with several other people. They were cool guys, but it just wasn't the same. So fast forward to where I get an apartment. My apartment is where all my friends are hanging out and my girlfriend's hanging out and all this stuff. Girls did not play role-playing games back in the 80s because they did not want to, not because they weren't invited. In my town, I know there's other people as I've gotten older who have been into it since it started. So I kind of misspoke there. In my town, they did not want to play. So all of a sudden, this guy named Nathan pops up, and he has this game called Werewolf Apocalypse through White Wolf Games and stuff. And all of a sudden, we're playing Werewolf, and we move on to Vampire the Masquerade and Vampire the Vampire of the Dark Ages. So of course I'm picking up anything that has to do with vampires, and this was also the year that we had Interview with a Vampire in theaters, if I remember right, and stuff. So it was all vampires. And then year before that, or after that, you also had crows everywhere. You had Sheryl Crow, the Crow, Brandon Lee Crow, James O'Barr Crow, Counting Crows. So it was all vampires and crows, for some reason. So I got this because it's a Brian Boland cover. I remember liking it, but it didn't throw me out there. But it's total vampire fantasy, female fantasy, a bunch of biker chicks running around being vampires, So I'm going to end up collecting that again. I don't know what happened to it over the years, but it was fun. But the White Wolf games were fantastic. We had girls playing the game with us because there was seduction involved. I'm not exaggerating. As soon as I'm not going to mention their names because they're actually on my Facebook page, friends on Facebook. I'd hate for some weirdo to get on there and start talking to them. But yeah, there was seduction. I laughed. I'm like, there's no seduction roles in this game. And Nathan popped up and went, actually, there are. And you spend a blood point as a vampire to start that stuff. So all of a sudden we're playing these, after playing D&D for years where it's hack slash slime mold creatures, treasure and all that stuff, all of a sudden I'm having to defend myself from being seduced. I'm like, what? Man, the 90s are weird. Anyway. Can't remember which issue of Thunder Age I have, but they have Ditko art in them. I don't know. I want to say that rings a bell, but I'm not going to commit. Well, guys, that is it. That is the haul from the last month and a half. As usual, I look around and I'm sure there's other things that I've already seen. I already see 2 books over here I didn't put in the stack. 3 books, but that's okay because it's sunny outside. I have this shelf to put together, play some records and cassettes, and the wife has just gotten up too. You have fantastic timing. All right, so you guys be excellent to each other and have a great weekend, man. Like, sub, subscribe, and everything. Later, guys.